Hi, my honeys. In this week's episode, I want to very gently discuss the dense emotional state of shame with you. Do not be afraid to look into this because I promise we won't be diving all the way in head first. We're just going to dip our toes into the pool of what the energy of shame is in order to understand it a little better so that we can process through and release most of it. To begin with, a quick word of welcome. As always, if you are returning to my channel, thank you so much for being here with me. I value and appreciate you, and I hope in return you are receiving value and love from my content. If you are new here, you are most welcome. Hi, I am just Melissa, and all this is Empower Empire, where I endeavor to share tools and insight, light and love, with the potential for healing with all of you. So today, let's bring our awareness, just for a little while, to the dense emotion of shame. What is shame? That's not just a feeling, but held as a very low, dense and heavy emotional state. Why do we hold shame and feel shame? Think shameful thoughts, sometimes do shameful things. Where does it come from? Why does it exist? Well, first of all, personally, the shame that we receive, that we unconsciously hold within our sense of self, and even within our physical bodies, as well as in our energetic field, is transferred to us via many means when we are very, very young. It forms the basis of our sense of self very often. Those messages can be most harshly transferred to us in our young and unconscious minds via abuse in any form and neglect. When our needs are unmet or we are violated somehow in a complete distortion of the love and the belonging that should be there. The way that we internalize that neglect and that abuse is via the state of shame, where this sense of unworthiness begins to form. The message of being unworthy, of somehow being undeserving or not good enough, can also be very subtly transferred via words, via deeds or the lack of deeds in terms of meeting our needs, where it can become an all-pervasive energy that is just the atmosphere we breathe, in which we know, without knowing how we know, that we're not good enough. We internalize that energy as being not deserving of having our needs met. In my case, of even deciding that we must be intrinsically, essentially, completely unlovable. These are not thoughts that our conscious minds can contemplate. So we bury them. We bury these realities, these core personal truths, as deep in our subconscious as we possibly can. Because there's a part of us that recognizes just how damaging that low and dense energy actually is. And so we suppress it in the very lowest frequency available in 3D, which is known as the emotional state of shame. We go through our lives unconsciously carrying this shame. Most of us are completely unaware that we have any of it at all. But we suppress that. And all we know is its effects in our lives. We may be severely codependent, very insecurely attached in life, have personality disorders, be extremely perfectionistic, full of anxiety and worry. These are all the outworkings of unconsciously held shame. And another thing is that the thing is, like attracts like, right? So if we are unconsciously holding all this shame, another way that it fleshes itself out in order for us to see it, in order for us to become aware of what we are unconsciously carrying, is that we can add to our shame. We add to it via the beliefs that we hold about ourselves. Thoughts that were first transferred to us externally become our own internal truths that we repeat to ourselves. And it can even go as far as fleshing itself out in our own shameful deeds. If we don't use the mirror of life to correct our thoughts and to be aware of our feelings, then we begin behaving that way. It's all life's attempt to show us what we're carrying in unconsciousness. So we add to our shame load, our burden of shame, through negative actions of our own, things that we say and do and even feel that we judge as shameful. So that load of shame that we carry just keeps getting bigger, which does what? That's right, attracts in even more of the same shame. Again, it's not a coincidence that those two words are so close, same and shame. We just add in the H for a little bit of metaphorical hell. So what I want to encourage you with, my honeys, is that we live in a universe and under a dispensation of grace and mercy because of this. You see, in order for 3D reality to exist, with a polarized experience that is ultimately not true, in order for that to manifest, polarity and duality required really low density, very, very low frequencies, so many miles removed from the highest love and light and the actual truth. And so because those very low densities were required, really negative experiences became possible via this free will act of distorted egos. And so because that very low density had to exist, think of it like a riverbed, and our life experience as the water in the river, the sunlight shining above would be the dispensations of grace and mercy. Grace is given to us in order for us to know that our own shame, consciously or unconsciously held, given to us via abuse and trauma and neglect, or added to by us via our own deeds, that there is grace for the density that must exist. We experience this grace as the reality of forgiveness, the ability we have to forgive others for their shameful words, deeds, abuse, and neglect, our ability to be forgiven ourselves for our own. Forgiveness comes like healing waters to wash it away, to give us the opportunity to redeem ourselves and to make right in as much as we can. And mercy exists when too many shameful deeds and violations have been visited upon us externally, and it just gets too hard, the challenges are too much, we can appeal to life's mercy for miracles, for love, for assistance, for help, for healing, and for support. So within this low and dense, polarized and dualistic reality, the light of truth and love, grace and mercy never ever goes out and is never absent. Endless grace and mercy is always available to us all, my honeys. None of us, not one, can ever be defined solely and only by our shame. No matter how shameful our deeds and actions may have been, we are all so much more than the worst thing we've ever done. So much more than the worst thing we could ever do. So much more than the worst thing we've ever experienced. So much more than our worst feelings and our worst thoughts. We are all so much more than that. We all carry the capacity for absolutely everything within ourselves, because consciousness is one, my honeys. So to a lesser or a greater extent, our inherent capacity for things is either amplified or not, and leads to shameful things in line with that capacity or not. But to recognize that we all hold that capacity is why the energy of forgiveness is possible. On a spectrum of polarity, on this end, the false light end, that truth splits itself into false light and dark. On the false light end of the spectrum, that's where we rationalize and justify things because it's not so bad. We're just exercising a modicum of this energy. On the other end of the spectrum, particularly, is where we judge because it's the full extent of that energy. But nonetheless, it is the same energy. And to recognize where we are in that spectrum, to bring it to the neutral middle, is to understand what the truth and the light and the love actually is and has always been. So let's not justify on this hand and judge and condemn on this, but let's come together to what the truth really is. And in truth, there is no shame, there is only experience. And every experience holds at its heart the gift of forgiveness. It's given in order to bring us closer to what the central truth is and always has been, that all is love. All is intrinsically, essentially worthy, because it is the everything. So like all things, my honeys, healing, even healing from shame, is simple. It is literally just bringing our perspective and our feelings back into that mid, perfectly balanced and true alignment. Coming back to center, coming back to core, coming back to source, coming back to truth. That is what healing is. We release on our way there, on our way back to the truth we've never left, the love we intrinsically are. That is our value. That is our worth. Sometimes we carry shame that isn't ours. When we have been victimized truly through some form of a violation, an attack, or abuse, very often, as victims of that experience, we carry the shame of it. And it's not ours, my honey. We need to own our own shame, but we also need to give back the shame that's not ours. If we have experienced terrible things and we are carrying that shame, we need to wrap it up in a little box of darkness and hand it back to the will where it belongs. Hand back the shame that isn't yours. Own and forgive what might be. Hand back with love, grace and forgiveness the shame that is not yours to carry. There is redemption for that too. But that is not our journey. Our journey is to live in and under and supported by the dispensation of unending grace and eternal mercy. May we have it for ourselves and hold it. May we extend it to all others with forgiveness. And may we all truly heal. Much love.